Hello, everyone. Welcome to Chasing a Murderer. Today, we are on part 78 of Life Beyond the Grave, which is attached to the Doomsday Mom, Lori Vallow. Right now, we are in a timeline of 2019, and this is where things begin to get really heated. Lori Vallow, who is married to Charles Vallow, she has 3 children, but only 2 living at home, has now become obsessed with the end days and Chad Daybell and preparing the people. She was once obsessed with Julie Rowe, but that's starting to fade away a little bit. As Julie Rowe is starting to fade out of Chad Daybell's life, things start to get heated, and she starts to hear things that are going on. But let's hear what she has to say about Chad Daybell when she was in his life actively.
When I met Chad in February 2015, we started working together and we talked every day. And that was basically our relationship every couple of days while we were working on the first 2 books. The 3rd book, I got busier because I started my relief organization in August of 2015. Chad and Tammy were very involved in my life. I was also making them a lot of money. And they were never in it for the money, at least I didn't think so. They always made me feel very comfortable.
So something we need to understand is that Chad Daybell's not making a lot of money. He's just not. Tammy Daybell is the one with the most supportive job. And it's true, they will financially struggle. What's important to note here is who Chad is and what he's like during this time.
They were very, very kind. I never had any reason to doubt their genuineness. I watched Chad sacrifice both financially and in many ways. He was forced out of one of his jobs because the guy told him that he wouldn't print my books anymore unless he detached himself from me. Chad went to bat for me for 3 years, fiercely. He helped me when I had adversarial attacks and all kinds of things. He would come and listen. He didn't go to all my speaking engagements, but he went to several of them. And
another thing that's important to note, one thing Chad was doing was using his connections to authors and book writing and publishing to spend time with a lot of these ladies and other people away from Tammy. Tammy used to go at times, but in 2018 and 2019, Tammy and Chad Daybell, well, they're drifting apart, especially when it comes to the religious part. Chad is more aggressive in his religious endeavors, whereas Tammy's more laid back. Likewise, Lori Vallow is very aggressive in her religious endeavors, while Charles is trying, but he just can't be as aggressive as his wife. Charles is truly what keeps Lori in sync. In sync with what? Reality. Anyways, let's continue with Julie Rowe's interview.
I sat in his living room with his children and his family. I went to Dairy Queen with Chad and Tammy, and I watched how they raised their kids. I watched how they treated each other. And Chad, by all appearances, Chad was a good husband, and he was kind to her. They'd sit on the couch and hold hands,
Okay.
And he was kind to me.
So let's pull it back to current events now. So where are we now?
This is what she's saying now, but later she will say that he kind of got sexually aggressive with her during an energy session. She gives you a hint, a little bit more details on the relationship between her and Chad.
And how you're describing this shift that took place in your relationship.
Yes.
There's been a lot of
in December.
There's been a lot of discussion on the media about this cult. What can you tell us about this cult? Is this real? Do you know it?
We won't go into that part of the interview right now, but you could hear her say that things started to shift in December of 2018 between her and Chad Daybell. Julie truly believed that Chad was a visionary. She said that his gifts were, not as extensive as hers, and this is why Chad would oftentimes contact her about the visions he's having and run them by her to see what she thought. And one of their main things that they have in common is they both believe and knew that events in the future were going to be attached to the second coming, and even predicted the death of Tammy. Julie will be contradictive about this topic. Actually, she will say that her angels from the other side of the veil contact her and let her know that Tammy may pass away, and she kept it to herself. That's what she says. Meanwhile, back at the Vallow household, things are not going so well at all. Zach Cox is living in the same household as his Aunt Lori and his Uncle Charles, and he's witnessing the change in his aunt. Her social life has switched suddenly. Charles Vallow is very suspicious, and so he's kind of looking in to see what is causing Lori so much change. Lori is going to the temple all the time, and at times he will talk about these concerns with Zach, and Zach with him. But Charles is only concerned whenever he feels like it's a problem, but also he is fighting with himself. If he sees Lori at home and cooking dinner with the kids, he kind of lays or chills out a little bit more. Lori tells Zach basically that she doesn't want him talking to Charles Vallow. He doesn't want to get kicked out of the house. He's worried and confused, and he's getting a taste of what his aunt's like if he doesn't do exactly what she wants. She will threaten you. In the Vallow household, well, everything's a mess. There's a lot of controversy, and there is constant drama. We are learning that Lori is a drama magnet, has problems and troubles wherever she is. There is not a middle ground for Lori, ever. There is only two sides. The other side, or the right side, which is hers. Two options, Team Lori or Team Enemy. Zach appears to love his aunt, and he's very worried about, what she's going through, very much so. And Zach just wants everyone to be happy. He wants to be able to love everyone. But this is impossible because Lori will not allow for this during this time. Zach wants to be more bold about the situation with Lori and her strange beliefs, but he really can't. So something I've often wondered if Zach and Tylee ever talked about this. And Zach during this time isn't 100% sure what the correct thing is to do. But he's been considering the concerns of Charles for a while. At one point, Charles says, just let Lori believe what she wants to as long as she's happy. But now they're starting to see as we move forward that allowing this thing, let her believe what she wants to, and as long as she's happy, they might have gone over the deep end. So it sounds like you either let Lori do what she wants to do, or she's going to make all of our lives miserable. Lori's obsession with death and the afterlife is getting more severe every day. And before all this, Zach said his aunt has always been interested in end days. Later he refers to the fact that he doesn't think that Lori was leading Chad or Chad was leading Lori during this time, because Lori was already on this path before she met Chad Daybell. She was listening to Julie Rose podcasts and Michael Strahd's and all these preppers. But there's one thing. Adam Cox is starting to wonder if his sister is suffering from some type of mental illness. And maybe that has a big factor as to why she was drawn into these cult-like beliefs. We already know that Lori Vallow isn't happy with the way that her life has turned out. It's not gone the way that she envisioned it to. And every man that she had been with, she was trying to mold them into something she wanted them to be. She wanted them to be leaders of the church, and she would push them to be more involved. In January of 2019, Lori's beginning to talk about Unclean spirits, okay? People being possessed, especially Charles Vallow. The date that this actually begins is really unknown. They can only guess, and we kind of see different dates come from each witness. We're going to go ahead and just put it in here in mid-January of 2019 for now. And as we get new information, I always update it. So Lori's wanting to do castings, and they are at Zalima's house. Zalima's daughter is there. Several of Lori's friends are there, including Melenie Gibb. And they say that Lori takes this meeting and directs everyone as to what they're going to do for this casting. According to Melenie Gibb in a later interview, she says no one understands casting out or what it is meant to do exactly, at least from what Lori's wanting them to do. Lori seems a little bit clueless during this first casting gathering, I guess is what we could call it. But one thing's for certain, Lori says her husband Charles Vallow has been possessed by a demon. She even calls it Ned Snyder, the same name that Chad Daybell was searching not too long ago. So they'll meet at different people's houses, which I'll go through once we get to that in the timeline, like at Selena's house and several others. So what happened to Charles again? A reminder, he was in a car wreck, but he didn't die. His body didn't, but his spirit did. And somehow, before the body could die, an evil spirit took over his body. And we believe, I do anyways, that this is the same time JJ would have had this happen as well. Though Lori seems afraid to kind of mention that to anybody. They had predicted both Charles and JJ would die in a car wreck. According to Melenie Gibb, they were using energy code work to cleanse a lot of the energy when it comes to working with the light energy and the dark. But Melanie claims that she's not very familiar with any of this. And a lot of these people, they believe, especially Lori and Julie Rowe, that Satan and demons, they affect your life on a daily basis. But Melanie Gibb will claim in later interviews that this is a totally new concept to her. She had learned a lot of this stuff from Chad, but that makes no sense because she also said, well, I only met him a few times. I've only hung out with him a few times. According to Melanie, Chad had called Lori Vallow and informed her that Ned Snyder, a dark spirit, had taken over her husband's body. Melanie claims that she overheard them speaking and that once Lori got off the phone, she could tell that Lori was kind of blown away by this. And I think she might have either made that up or didn't understand Lori's reaction. I'm thinking Lori was probably excited by that. She said Lori had never heard anything like that before. And so Lori's presenting herself, look, I'm in this dilemma. Charles' body has been possessed. He's dead now, and an evil spirit has taken over his body, and I need your help. And Christina sincerely asked Lori, what can we do to help you? We're all here. They want to help Lori. So they are asking Lori, what can we do to help you cast out this demon? And so Lori will direct each and every one of them their parts. And according to Melanie Gibb, they all start talking about different ideas, throwing those out at each other, and then coming up with these random ideas how to cast out this evil spirit living in Charles' vessel. The best way I can describe this is these girls, they're all trying to come up with a salad that they all can eat and enjoy together. One's throwing in tomatoes, one's throwing in cheese, maybe eggs, lettuce, whatever. And Lori is using her priesthood power that she received from Moroni and the Lord himself to orchestrate all this. And Melanie Gibb, at first, when interviews started coming out, they kind of pushed towards Lori was learning every single thing from Chad. Chad was the orchestrator of all these new teachings. But as more witnesses started coming forward, you could tell that Lori is not the type of girl to follow. She's the type of girl to lead. Here's some audio of Melenie Gibb talking to the police, trying to describe what they were doing.
What the idea is to get, if there is an evil spirit in you, then you ask in the name of Christ that evil spirit leave. That's what it's about. Okay.
So sometimes in my mind, I'm having a little trouble trying to picture this.
Okay.
But like, if I look at this, I'm like, such and such has a evil spirit in them.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I would call a group together to have a prayer dedication.
Yeah.
Or if I would just, in my own personal prayer, say, Lord, will you help this person out?
Right. I don't agree with it. But I want you to know that's what the idea. Anything I tell you, I don't agree with. But that's how it came about in the time. So how it started was this. We were in Suleiman's house, probably in January. I don't know how to remember the date other than I was trying to think of sequences, So there was Christina and Nicole. Remember them?
Mm-hmm.
And Serena was there. I was there, Sulema was there, and Lori was there. And maybe Sulema's daughter might have been in the house, but I don't remember. And so she was talking to everybody about that Charles now had this evil spirit in him. Okay, so that was kind of what they were talking about.
Okay, tell me about that evil spirit. Did the evil spirit have a name?
Yeah, remember we talked about it. It's the Ned guy.
Right.
That's what they said he was. And he was this Ned person, okay? All right. So she's kind of talking to the girls, and they're all kind of talking about what's going on. And she's like, I don't know what we're supposed to do about this. How do we get, how do I do this? I don't understand what this. So nobody has any information about casting out at this point. And then Christina, she starts talking about something. This was all beyond me because I didn't do the energy work. I mean, I had energy work done to me before, but I don't know how to do it. And I don't know if Christina knew about it or not. I'm not sure. But Christina started talking about, man, I don't know how she brought it up now. It's been a long time for me to remember. I don't know how they started talking about, but somehow they started talking about casting out somehow. And then they all started joining in. I was listening because I didn't have any comment to make to it. I was like, I don't know. And then they were trying to figure out, she was trying to help solve the problem. Like, if this Ned is in him, how do we get him out? Or I don't even know if that was the right word at the time, get him out. But
can I stop real quick?
Yeah.
Remind me.
So here's where Melanie actually throws Chad under the bus. You ready?
Remind me how she knew that was Ned.
Okay, that was, remember when Chad made the phone call? Lori and I were in her house, one of her houses she lived in. Not the last house, but the one prior to the last one. Because I remember where I was at certain times, so I remember the house. Anyway, so I remember she was coming in the door. It seemed like we just did a podcast with a couple of men. So we just did that podcast. They left. And Chad calls and says, hey, I want to let you know that I did some research and figured out that this Ned, it's been a while since I thought about this. Ned,
that's right.
Ned, yeah, you even forgetting details. It's been 2 years, right? Or something like that. So Ned, Schneider, thank you. And Ned Schneider is in him. And she was taken back a little bit because it was a new concept for her. She didn't know about that this could happen. So this was introduced from Chad. Absolutely 100% sure of that. Okay. So then she was ruminating over that idea for a while. They were talking.
How are you 100% sure of that? That was introduced by Chad to her.
Because I'm watching them talk on the phone, and after that conversation, she shares with me, this is what Chad just shared with me.
It's obvious that the police do not trust Melenie Gibb and are testing her out. And who can blame them? There's no way that you can be involved with these kind of teachings for that long and just say, I don't know anything about it. So we've learned from several other girls how they do this. In fact, we know that some of them have the power over fire. Some have the power over water, earthquakes. And we already know that Lori is a prophetess. So there's some amazing mystical powers going on within this circle. So how is it Melanie Gibb doesn't know anything? So here's how you know Melanie Gibb's full of it. Listen and you decide for yourself.
As we talked around the girl, they were trying to figure out, well, how do we do this? How do we get this figured out? So they sat there and talked about it. And a lot of the wording that they used, which I can't recall all of it, but it had to do with features that they learned from energy work. Different weapons and different so like stones or different things that they had learned through a spiritual means, talking about, hey, let's, and they came up with this stuff. I did not come up with it because I didn't even know what to say about any of it.
Did they come up with it? Or did Lori assign them something?
No, at first they talked about it as a group. They were like, well, what can we do? And it was seemed like Christina started bringing it out first, actually. She's the one that, and I'm trying to remember the words, but I can't really remember what she said. I just remember she's like, I remember her sitting down with her one day and go, what can we do to help you, Lori? She was sincere, and I was thinking. And so anyway, they started talking, getting different ideas. And so she was told that she had this priesthood power. Now that Moroni gave it to her in the temple, she suddenly had this priesthood power. Right. That women were now getting it, because you know that they don't have it in church, right?
I find that odd.
Yeah, everything's odd. But at the same time, because I was on this, so I had listened to some podcasts she had learned. So it wasn't super odd for a person that had listened to Julie Rowe or Mike Stroud, because they were talking about how, now if you go back and listen to those two, she doesn't come up with this stuff herself. This has been coming up by other people, okay?
Well, right, and I know that the big picture is all that we're doing here, because, you know, your LDS, when you hear something as Moroni appeared to her in the temple and gave her priesthood powers, what did you think about that?
Well, let me back up to when I first met her to help you understand how I got involved with her. You know, Jason Now's the one that introduced me to her.
Let's pause right there. So where is Melanie Gibb think that this energy stuff is coming from? Here you go.
Emotion code and energy work and all that. She's the one that really opened that up. And then he switched from being with that one lady, Suzanne Freeman, and then he dumped her. I call it dump because he just kind of moved from one person to the other. And they went to Julie Rowe, and then he dumped Julie Rowe, and then he went to Lori. So he kind of kept doing this.
So why is Chad jumping from one person and one author to the other? They say he might be doing it for the money. That's interesting. It is true that Julie Rowe brought him quite a bit of money, but could that be it? Melanie Gibbs goes back to speaking about what the castings are supposed to be.
I recently learned that, but from a good source. But so this is what the castings really were about, is to invite the spirits to leave, or with their so-called power or their, things that they would bring. I never thought this was like a huge deal. I mean, I talked a little bit about it before. All I said to is like, we did prayer, she did prayers to help ask us something. I don't know how I said it, but to me, it has no effect. There was no power of what she did, so it had nothing to do with anything, because it was all by Satan. Now, when Julie Clement got involved, I remember one night we were at Lori's, the last house she was in before Charles died. I think he was still alive. And I remember they were doing a prayer, and Julie Clement and Sulema with their, energy, they both do energy work. They're saying, she's like, I saw this dragon, something like this. And I know Sulema said she saw that later, and I didn't see anything. So that's just what they imagined in their, I don't know, this, some evil spirit tricking them, something.
How many castings do you think that you were involved in?
Gosh, I don't know.
What would you guess?
Um, maybe 10. Maybe. Not sure.
So what you're learning is they're using energy work, which some of them are not familiar with, to fight spiritual battles, creating weapons, swords, rocks, or darts. Melanie's pretty quick to throw everyone under the bus except for Lori. She spends a lot of time blaming this Christina girl in this interview for a lot of the ideas, yet she can't remember what she did 5 minutes ago or what she said in the circle. Lori and Chad create a ranking system for these people that are dark and light, and especially for the zombies. And they're using these numbers to say, you know, what they score. So, for example, if Charles was once 100% light, maybe he's now 69%. Anyways, Melanie Gibb tries to describe how she took it. But these castings will continue on from January 2019 through the spring into the summer of 2019.
She lived in Florida and Texas. Remember that? I remember she was, I can't remember if it seemed like she was doing the phone with Chad. I remember her talking about Charles because he was in the house. She was really into Charles's. She kept saying, "Oh, he's getting broken down. He's getting broken down. He's getting weaker. He's getting weaker. We're just casting. We're doing things to help, get him weaker, get his, spirit out of his body, kind of a thing." They were like working on him. I remember that a lot.
So let me ask you this: were there any castings that you weren't present? You were just on the phone with them.
So there was. In the beginning, there was a phone call. That's right. Good thing you reminded me. Serena, Sulema. At one point, Melanie joined in, and Nicole, Melanie Woodrow. Oh, wait. Sorry, I remembered one. Let me just stick to that one right now. Sorry.
That's right.
All over the place. This is not enjoyable for me.
It's all right.
This sucks. Anyway.
We'll get through it.
So, yes, there was this phone thing because she was doing it through Zoom. It was a Zoom thing. And so they were everybody had their own little parts. I just said mine, I was talking about Jesus, right? But one was over fire elements or something, wind, fire, earth. I don't know, just they came up with some funky words. And not that they were horrible words, they were just not usual. Putting them together in a sentence kind of thing. I don't know how to describe it. It's very unusual. So yeah, they did that a few times on the phone.
Something I want to mention is Lori gets jealous of people. She will create drama or issues in order to get those people out of her life. This is a constant, deliberate, planned, and enforced act on many people surrounding Lori Vallow and Charles Vallow, including Charles Vallow's wife, the things that she put her through. I can't go through the details, but I can promise you that Lori was creating a bunch of lies in order to try to rip Charles away from his ex-wife and his own children. So what Melanie Gibb says next makes a lot of sense, because when Lori gets either jealous, offended, or feels like you are against her, she eliminates you, shuns you, or causes you trouble.
And then she just Lori just kind of got tired of dealing with them. She was like, "Oh, this person talks too much." She'd get irritated with people. I think she was always jealous. Anyway.
So Melanie is jumping ahead a little bit too far for us here, so we'll stop. But Lori is starting to think that she has a new job and that she has the power to get rid of all the zombies, and this will develop over time.
Entities are in other people's bodies, so her idea was for her to get rid of the zombies. The idea was for her thought she had the power to cast it out. She'd say in the name of whatever. It didn't seem like it was done out of any kindness or anything like that. It was just a matter of if you were to invite somebody to leave. I think they started using different weapons that had light in them to help that encourage that spirit to come out of the body by those words. But it had no power. So I haven't worried about it since I've left Lori. I was like, she doesn't have any power. She can't hurt me. I'm not worried about her. So obviously I didn't believe in it to the level of worrying about my life, right?
We're jumping ahead here, but that's kind of condescending to what she says on Nate's interview, which we'll cover another day. So like I mentioned before, we go back and forth. There's going to be times where they are very adamant about making Julie Rowe look evil. And Melanie shares one of the stories of an experience that Tammy has. And you got to think about this. If Tammy talks to Julie Rowe, which is now their enemy, Tammy may learn truth. So now they're trying to convince Tammy that Julie Rowe is evil. So now Julie Rowe has just turned into a victim just like that. Why? Because she knew truth. She could ruin Chad's affairs. Anyways, here's one of the stories that they tell Tammy.
So tell me again about the knocking on the door.
So something about one night, it was, this is what Chad would tell Lori, that Tammy woke up to a knock at the door, and then he would say, maybe to Julie, I don't know, I mean to his wife, I don't know, but he said, she told me that he said it was Julie's spirit knocking at the door, that's what woke her up. So that was one indication, and there could have been other things I can't recall, but she just says, I felt this feeling of like they were kind of like around her house as evil spirits. That's what it felt like, what she was telling me. So I get how you feel things, you picture it, but you don't have the words to describe it.
Anyways, I'm not certain when this happened, but I'm thinking this is happening close to October, which is going to be in the future, when Tammy's starting to get a little suspicious. It's so hard to tell this story in order. Anyways, I'm going to end it here. If you enjoyed this hard work, and it's a lot of hard work, you can donate to my Patreon at Chasing a Murderer. If you can't do that, you can at least like or subscribe or even share. Thank you so much for the support that you guys have given me throughout these years. I love you guys, and I'll see you guys soon.